Hi everybody. Today we're looking at the Basic Notation Worksheet Part 1, and the first thing you're going to do is draw 6 treble clefs, and you can see I'm drawing some right now. So it's the 4-step process that I showed you before, and you want to make sure to circle that second line to get the G clef. I just drew 3 just to show you, and then we're going to draw some bass clefs, and you can see I just make a little hook kind of with the 2 dots to indicate that the 4th line is F. So just put a dot in those spaces above and below that 4th line. And then 6 alto clefs, and I confess I'm not great at drawing these, but a line, and what you want to do is just mark that middle line as C. So somehow you're probably going to do better than I did on this. Not so good. All right, let's do this again. Okay, I could do better, right? Okay, hopefully better. And then the tenor clef is similar. You're going to draw 6 of these, and I'm not drawing 6, but you can, and you're going to mark the 4th line as C. And then we're going to go on here. In the next one, you're going to draw several things. So first a whole note. Doesn't really matter if you put it on a line or space. You can see mine's on a space. Half note with the stem above the note, and that stem will go on the right, about an octave above it. And then we're going to do 4 quarter notes with the stem below, and the same thing, an octave below on the left. So when stems are on the right, or when stems go up, they're on the right. When they go down, they're on the left. Oops, made a little mistake there. All right, now we're going to draw some 8th notes. So here we go on this. All right, so I'm going to use flags. The stems go up on the right and down on the left of the note head. So the stems are down on the left, but the flag is on the right. When the stems are up on the right, the flag is still on the right. And then you can see I'm beaming these together. Now when the note is above the middle line, you can have the stem below the note. When the note is below the middle line, have the stems above the note. That's the general rule. So here I'm going to do 4 16th notes with flags, and they're going below. The stems are below on the left, the flags are on the right. Now I'm doing some 16th notes with the stems above on the right, and the flags are still on the right. Keep in mind that if the note is above the middle line, the stem goes down on the left. If the note is below the middle line, the stem goes up on the right. To beam some together. So you can see I just put the stems down on the left and just draw 2 beams. I like drawing them this way because it's much easier, very fast, right? And then I'm going up on the right of the note head. Oops, those weren't very good. Let me do those again. All right. And then up on the right and the 2 beams, and there we have 16th notes. So those are all 16th notes. Now you're going to draw several things here. A whole rest. So, whoops, that's a half rest. So a half rest is on top of the line. It's a hat. And a whole rest is like a hole, so it goes below the line. I like doing them on the 4th line, so that's a whole rest. And then the half rest sits on top of the line. A quarter note rest, I kind of make it like that. There's other ways to make it, but that's how mine looks. There's an 8th note rest. Dotted whole note, so the note is on the space, the dot goes in the space. Now if the note is on the line, the dot goes in the space above that note. So you can see I put those dots in the space, and here's an 8th note, dotted 8th note. Now in the next one, you're going to draw the number of notes in parentheses that will equal the amount of time that the larger note before it is. So here I drew 4 quarter notes because that would equal the same amount of time as the whole note. So now we're going to look at the Basic Notation Worksheet Part 2, and in this one you're going to draw some grand staffs. Now the first grand staff actually is already there, but I'm going to trace that line and put a bracket in, and then a treble clef in the top staff and a bass clef in the bottom staff. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the next measure. Just draw a line and then a bracket and then a treble clef and a bass clef. Again, most of you will do better than I do with this. My writing's not very good. I think I can make a better bracket there. Let me erase that. And I'll put a new bracket in for you. There you go. All right, so just fill that line with grand staffs. All right, now in the next one, you're going to draw each of these notes that are written. So the C is done, but I'm going to do D. So I'm putting in all of the Ds that I can write using 2 ledger lines or less. So I had to draw 2 up there, and there's a D. And then I'm going to mark each one. Now on these, you can see that I'm putting a number by that. So if it's middle C is C4, C4 is middle C, and that's the reference point we want to use when we do these. So middle C in the treble clef is 1 ledger line below the staff, and middle C in the bass clef is 1 ledger line above the staff. And then if we go to the C below middle C in the bass clef, it's on that second space, that's C3, and the C 2 ledger lines below the staff is C2. We actually could go farther and get down to C1, but that's a lot of ledger lines, so we're not going to do that. And then if we go in the treble clef, we start at middle C, which is that first ledger line below the staff. That's C4. The ledger line on the third, or the note on the third space is C5, and then 2 ledger lines above the staff is C6. Now we can use that as a reference point because all of the other notes will correspond. So for example, when I did the next measure, I've got D, and then the note above the C2 will be D2 because I haven't gotten to the third octave yet. Then you can see that next D is above the C3, so that's D3. And then the next D is 1 ledger line above the staff, so it's D4. And in treble clef, that next D is still D4 because that's just the first D above middle C. And then the next D would be D5 and D6. So let's do one more. We're going to go on to G. We'll put in those notes. So I'm going to draw a G on that lower line. And think about what number you would give that. Now I've got to draw 2 ledger lines. So that's actually below middle C, that G 2 ledger lines below the treble clef staff. So I'm going to put in, so that's G2. It's just above C2, but not quite to C3. G3, and that's also a G3 there. So we're below middle C, then that second line G is G4, and then the top space G is G5. So go ahead and finish this and then send it to me when you're finished. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you, everybody.